So, what does a successful birth actually look like? Is it one that follows the plan perfectly? Or is it something else? We're going to dive into that very question by looking at one mother's really incredible story. It's a story that honestly shines a huge light on the maternity care crisis and shows us what resilience truly means. So this quote, this is from a mother who was just determined to reclaim her birth experience. Imagine this. After 3 C-sections that made her feel totally powerless, she fought for the chance to have a vaginal birth. And she labored so fiercely, just pouring everything she had into it. But as we know, birth can be wildly unpredictable. And in just an instant, everything changed. Okay, so after hours of progress, all of a sudden the baby's heart rate just plummeted. And the reason why? It was a hidden danger. An umbilical cord, so short it was wrapped tight around his neck. An emergency C-section was literally the only way to save him. But here's the really powerful twist in her story. This wasn't a failure, not at all. It was a triumph. It was this moment where her own advocacy and her team's incredible skill just collided, and it was life-saving clarity. This C-section for her was redemption. You see, her story, this mix of just fierce determination and absolutely essential medical care, it's not some isolated event. It's really a window into a much bigger struggle. A struggle for respect, for access, and just for having a voice in the birth room. It really makes you ask, right? How did we get here, to a point where this kind of fight is so common? Okay, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. It's a pretty shocking paradox when you really stop and think about it. The US spends more on healthcare than any other country in the world, yet mothers are dying at a rate that's actually going up. And for millions of women, the system is failing them before they even get to a hospital, because just getting basic care is becoming this massive hurdle. And the scale of this problem is just staggering. 2.2 million. That's how many women of childbearing age in the US are living in what are called maternity care deserts. And what that means is they're in counties with no OBs, no birth centers, not a single hospital where they can deliver a baby. For these women, crucial care isn't minutes away, it's hours away. And this crisis, it's not spread out evenly. The national average is already pretty alarming, but some states are getting hit way harder. Take Missouri, for example. Over 40% of its counties are maternity care deserts. Can you just imagine the stress and the risk for families who have to drive for hours just to get to a checkup, let alone for the actual delivery? But look, this isn't just about a crisis of access, it's also a crisis of experience. Even for the women who can get to a hospital, the challenges don't stop there. So what's really at the heart of so many of these traumatic birth stories we hear about? Well, the answer often boils down to one single fundamental right. Yeah, you hear it time and time again in stories of traumatic births. There's this one common thread that just keeps showing up. A breakdown in respecting a patient's right to make decisions about their own body. And that fundamental right? It's called informed consent. So first, let's get really clear on what we mean by birth trauma. It's not just about a physical injury or complication. It's all the emotional and psychological distress that happens when someone feels like their care was unsafe, or like they were being ignored, or that they just completely lost control over what was happening to their own body. And this leads us right to the core principle of informed consent. This is a non-negotiable part of medical ethics and human rights law. It basically means a patient has to give their permission before any kind of medical treatment. It sounds simple enough, right? But how it's applied is actually pretty complex, and it's absolutely critical. Okay, so for consent to be real, it has to stand on 3 pillars. First, it's got to be voluntary, meaning no pressure from staff or even family. Second, it has to be informed. The patient gets all the info on risks, benefits, and other options. And third, the patient has to actually be able to understand and use that info to make a choice. And here's the kicker. The right to say no is just as important as the right to say yes. And this is exactly where it all connects back to trauma. Lawyers who specialize in these cases, they see this really disturbing pattern over and over again. A failure to get real informed consent is at the heart of so many claims. The trauma often starts the very moment a patient's voice is silenced and their choices get taken away. Okay, but the good news is people are noticing. These issues aren't being ignored. All across the country, healthcare systems are actually working on solutions to standardize care, make things safer, and create an environment that's way more respectful and collaborative for everyone giving birth. So, what do these solutions actually look like? Well, we're talking about things like safety bundles, which are basically simple checklists of practices that are proven to work, and when you use them together, they save lives. It also means making sure that every single ER is ready for a pregnancy-related emergency. And it's about creating simple but really powerful tools that any hospital can use. Let's zoom in on one really brilliant example, the Blue Band initiative. It is such a simple idea, but its impact is huge. Basically, this blue wristband is an immediate, silent alert to every single person on staff that this patient is at a high risk for preeclampsia, which is a really dangerous, life-threatening blood pressure condition. And this one little band does 4 critical things at once. 1, it identifies the risk, which reminds providers to pay extra close attention. 2, it pushes for early intervention before a crisis happens. But maybe most importantly, it empowers the patient. It gives them a real, tangible tool to say, hey, you see this band? That means you need to take my concerns seriously, right now. But here's the thing. All these big, system-wide solutions are absolutely vital, but they're only half the equation. The other half is you. Real, lasting change happens when an empowered patient meets a prepared system. So what can you do to prepare for your own journey? Well, it really all starts with knowledge. Understanding the urgent maternal warning signs. I'm talking about things like a killer headache that just won't quit, changes in your vision, or really bad swelling. Knowing those signs is one of the most powerful tools you have. Knowing when to speak up and get help isn't just important, it can literally save your life. And health systems are stepping up, creating tools to help close that knowledge gap. They're giving patients simple, visual guides just like these. So you can see on one side, there's a wallet card to help you make sense of your blood pressure numbers, and on the other, a poster that tells you exactly which symptoms mean you need to go to the front of the line in the ER. These are, plain and simple, tools for empowerment. And really, this is what the future of childbirth can be. When you have an educated, empowered patient meeting a prepared and respectful healthcare system, the whole dynamic just shifts. Conflict and trauma get replaced by partnership, and it's in that partnership that we find the promise of a safer, more dignified birth for every single person.